Hello. Hey, Ayurveda Everyday with Talia. This is Talia, and Stash is here too, but she's sleeping. So I'm going to make today's live a little bit shorter than usual because I have a webinar today. So if you have not yet signed up for the webinar, it's going to be really awesome. It's my 5 tell-all secrets to feeling energized and recharged in springtime. So it's very timely, and I'm going to give some really cool content in that webinar, and it's free. I'm actually going to be leading it live 3 separate times. So I'll put the registration link in the description of this video. So it'll be really easy for you to just sign up. But even if you can't make one of the times, if you sign up, there will be a 48-hour replay for each webinar that I do. So definitely sign up if it's something you're interested in learning, and you can get the replay. If not, join me live. So I keep some running notes about what what people are talking about in our group and what is on our community's mind when it comes to Ayurveda and learning Ayurveda. And one thing that came up kind of recently were some questions about green superfoods and how do they fit into the Ayurvedic diet and nutrition. So I want to talk about spirulina, chlorella, and seaweed, because they're kind of the top 3 green superfoods that I talk about. I also talk about chlorophyll quite a bit, but any green plant, the greener it is, the more chlorophyll it contains. So even when I talk about chlorophyll as a supplement, it's basically a concentrated source, or I want to say derivative. I don't know if that's the right word to say here, but it's a concentrated source of some kind of green plant material, like nettles or mint, or what have I seen it made out of? Once I've seen it out of cilantro. So a chlorophyll supplement is going to be liquid. Usually, I don't know that I've ever seen one that wasn't liquid. And it's a concentrated source of these greens. But spirulina and chlorella and seaweed are coming from water sources specifically. And one thing that I love about all 3 of these is they all detoxify the body, and they all do it in a very specific way. So, one thing, I sell this company's products in my shop, Ayurveda Everyday shop, and also accessible through my website, but Health Force Superfoods, previously known as Health Force Nutritionals. I worked for them for 7 years, and I love, love, love this company because the integrity behind their formulations and the integrity behind their ingredients is super high. Like, they will be out of stock on a product rather than provide you with a product that has a less than, amazingly pure test results. They'll be out of the product instead and wait until they get the right ingredient in. So I just love their integrity, and they're really true experts in the field of raw superfood nutrition. So that's where I learned so much of what I know about raw superfoods. And this one thing, that this detoxification factor that all these green superfoods have in common, in addition to that, green superfoods that come from water sources, they tend to also repel contaminants or radiation from them. Like seaweed, for example, it does not absorb radiation the way that something that's more fat-based could. So like fish, so when terrible, um, that terrible power plant accident, from the earthquake in Japan happened, was it 2013? I forget the exact date, but I don't know, Fukushima. Um, I almost said Hiroshima. Um, People were really truly concerned about all of the seaweed that was coming from that part of the world. Obviously, I don't know if it's obvious, but around Japan, around China, that's a really rich area for edible seaweeds, and a lot of seaweeds come from that part of the world, and people were really concerned. So when I was working for Health Force at the time, and they have very strict standards that are stricter than organic standards, for all of the ingredients that go into their products. So they were testing different plant material that was coming not necessarily from Japan at that point, but definitely from like the coast of China. And they were able to prove with their results that the seaweeds were not absorbing the radiation that had leaked into the water system, whereas fish were definitely contaminated. So one of the reasons why seaweed is such a powerful food, and I do teach about it as a food, is it repels, it detoxifies, it pushes away chemical radiation, spices that have been radiated, food that's contaminated. It helps you to release those harmful free radicals really from your body. I hope I'm not saying anything that is like scientifically very incorrect. I'm not a scientist. I'm an Ayurvedic practitioner, and I really understand science and Ayurveda on an energetic and elemental level. That's how my brain receives it, interprets it, understands it, and then can regurgitate it as a teacher. So sometimes I'm not the best with my scientific facts, I'm the first to admit. But seaweed is a really powerful superfood. So in addition to that, it has all these detoxifying properties for your blood, your liver, your digestive system. It's also a complete protein. And we need complete proteins. So this is especially relevant if you are vegan or vegetarian. We need these complete proteins. They're building blocks for all of the body's processes, and they're really a source of grounded, sustainable energy. And then the other bonus from seaweed is that, and seaweed can also be referred to as sea vegetables. I'm talking about things like kelp, dulse, sea palm, wakame, arame, bullwhip kelp. There's one I'm forgetting the name of right now. But all sea vegetables, all seaweeds fall into this category of being complete proteins, and also super rich in trace minerals. Trace minerals that we don't get anymore from the soil that's growing most of our vegetables. So sea vegetables are actually more mineral rich and micronutrient dense than a lot of green vegetables like broccoli or bok choy or kale or collard greens are these days. So one way you can use seaweed is, I've got a recipe that I teach in all my programs, but it's called mermaid tea. And if you have my cookbook, the Ayurvedic Vegan Kitchen, the recipe's in the cookbook. But it's basically just a glass of water, whether it's hot water, warm water, or room temperature water, with one piece of seaweed in it. Now, a piece of seaweed, if you're getting kelp, also known as kombu, it's very thick, it's very mucilaginous, so it's going to it's going to implant all of those trace minerals, all of this slippery, like the way that seaweed looks and feels when it's underwater is it is kind of slimy. And that slimy quality, which is what I call mucilage, is so good for nourishing the digestive tract of your digestive system. So when you're too dry, when you're constipated, when you're inflamed, even when you're really feeling overly full, overly caustic, or stuck or stagnant, kelp is amazing because it lubricates, it detoxifies, and it expectorates. So it really helps you release excess fire, excess mucus, excess heaviness, while giving your body these trace minerals that help your body be more available to absorbing water and other nutrients that you eat. So that is what I have to say about seaweed. And if you don't want to do it as a mermaid tea, because a lot of people don't feel like the taste of seaweed tastes too fishy. I don't feel that way, and every seaweed actually has a different taste. So, where I live in Santa Cruz, I live in a coastal area, and just up the coast from here, a few hours, we have the Mendocino coast. So on the west coast of California, that is like seaweed mecca, and we get tons of amazing seaweeds from that area. People on the East Coast have a lot of, I don't know the exact regions, but there's sea vegetables that are harvested off of the East Coast. And then, of course, there are sea vegetables coming from all over the world, including the coasts of Japan and China and Canada and other places. I think Canada, that might not be correct, but I think so. Anyway, it doesn't totally matter what source you get, but here in Santa Cruz, we have access to like 7 different seaweeds at pretty much, most of the health food stores. So I'm able to try different types and really experience like, oh wow, like the kombu, the one that's the thickest and the heaviest, it has a unique taste, whereas dulse, which is a more purple, salty seaweed, it's a little bit like if we were going to get even more into the geeky details of Ayurveda, which I love. I'm a total geek for it. Dulse being darker in color, being a little bit more salty, saturated with salt. That's better for vata, the dosha that tends to be cold and dry, and not as helpful for pitta, the dosha that tends to be hot and warm already. And you can see it by the color of the seaweed, and also when you taste it by the taste of it. So if you don't want to put it in water, straight water, you can just put a piece of seaweed or a few pieces for like something like sea palm. It's a smaller, thinner, each piece is much smaller and thinner than say kombu or dulse or nori. You can just put a piece or two in a pot of rice, or I love to put it like when I'm heating up broth. I'll always put a stick of seaweed into my broth as I'm warming it up, and then I'm infusing the broth with that complete protein, trace minerals, slippery, mucilaginous quality, and it enhances my digestion, it enhances my nutrition and my nourishment when I do that. So you can really add seaweed to anything that you're cooking. If you don't want to eat it, which I understand, but I do recommend that you eat it if you like the taste, you can just pull it out and compost it or give it to your dog. So let's see. Then chlorella and spirulina are the other 2 superfoods I want to talk about today. Now, these are both detoxifying as well. Really, almost any green vegetable, green plant has a detoxifying quality to it, and I'm going to talk about that today in my webinar. But spirulina is a little bit more hydrating than chlorella. It's a blue-green algae, and that blue pigmentation shows you that it, number one, is good for the brain, and I 1000% attest to the power of spirulina for nourishing the brain, improving memory function, improving stamina. Anytime I'm working on a really big project, especially if I'm typing a lot and thinking a lot, I'll add more spirulina into my diet, and I really feel the difference it gives my brain, like a little bit of an edge in terms of performance, I guess. Um, and the blue pigmentation also shows you that it's really great for kidney. It like that. It's almost like the color blue from the ocean. It hydrates and supports and bolsters the kidneys. So spirulina, while being detoxifying, and even if you ever have tasted it or you taste it after you watch this live, it has a more of a malty texture to it. It's more absorptive. So we use it in like vegan Ayurveda or just vegan superfood nutrition as a protein powder, for sure. Like a tablespoon of spirulina is about 8 grams of protein. It's amazing. Hi. Someone's saying, I've been making veggie seaweed soup. I'm clearly hot and dry, so that is I can't see the comment all the way. So that is confusing because it's part pitta, part vata, but mutually exclusive or aggravating. So confusing. Okay, but when you're adding seaweed, just, something like kombu is going to be tridoshic. So put the seaweed in, but don't use the seaweed that is like potentially imbalancing to pitta, which would be the dulse. Just use the other seaweeds that are truly green in color and you're fine. It will nourish both hot and dry. There are so many remedies in Ayurveda that I don't like to use this expression, but I find myself using it a lot because it's clearly explains what I'm saying, that kills two birds with one stone. I don't really want to kill any birds with any stones, but okay. It kills two birds with one stone when you put something like kombu into your veggie seaweed soup. It's going to be good for vata and good for pitta. The doshas are not mutually exclusive. We're like, oh, if you do this, it has a negative effect on this. That's usually not the case. It's actually much more the case with over-the-counter medication and prescription drugs, that it's helping one thing and harming something else. When we're truly aligning ourselves with nature and using nature's bounty to feed ourselves, there's much less of that like crazy, you're going to create some crazy imbalance. I mean, the big exceptions are things like, that desserts are very imbalancing to kapha. So even though I might make I'm really on a raw food kick today. I might make a beautiful raw cashew cheesecake, and every ingredient that goes into it is plant-based and beautiful and organic. It's still going to be a very sweet, heavy, dense, rich dessert. So even though it's plant-based, it can still imbalance kapha when they're eating it, either when they really don't need any excess, heaviness, or they've already had enough sweet in the day. And so this is really going to kind of just throw them off the edge just because they already are carrying a lot of kapha. But it's going to be super balancing for vata and pitta. And for that kapha dosha, even if they eat it, yes, it might imbalance them a little bit, but nowhere near as much as if they ate a real cheesecake made with cream cheese and white sugar and flour. I feel like I'm going a little bit all over the place today. I apologize, but I'm preparing for a webinar, so I think I just have a lot on my mind, and there's a lot I want to share, and I want to also save my energy for the webinar that's in an hour and a half from now. So join the webinar. I will be very grounded for it. Anyway, blah, blah, blah. I don't need to apologize for what I'm saying. Okay. Don't worry about pitta and kapha being opposites. They're not opposites. They're different. There are lots of things that you can use to heal them both, soothe them both, balance them both. Okay, so spirulina is more like a protein powder. you could eat, I mean, there are days when I eat like a quarter cup of spirulina. You can really eat a lot of spirulina and feel pretty good. It might have a detox in a detoxifying impact on your digestive system. So if you're not used to eating a lot of green superfoods, I don't recommend that you start with a quarter cup. I recommend that you start with a teaspoon or two or a tablespoon, and go from there. My favorite things to add spirulina to are fresh, sweet, juicy fruits. So a really beautiful sweet mango, amazing. Pineapple, amazing. Amy, you're so kind. You're always so supportive. I really appreciate you so much. And I'm so excited you're in the spring cleanse. Yay! And that you're an affiliate. Um, I love to put it on papaya. I'll even buy, like, it's now really turning. It's not so much in season right now, but all of these late winter, early spring tangerines, I'll put those into the blender and make a juice out of those and add spirulina to that. And it is truly like unbelievably good. And the other thing about these plant-based proteins, and detoxifying proteins is that they're blood sugar balancing. So when you add them to something like a raw dessert, or even if it's not raw, even if it's ice cream, or anything that's sweet, you're going to get some blood sugar stabilization that you won't have when you don't add the spirulina or seaweed or chlorella. So it makes a difference in that way. And then the difference between spirulina and chlorella, the main difference, because they're both algae. Seaweed is not an algae, it's a seaweed. Spirulina and chlorella are algae. Is spirulina is blue-green, chlorella is green. So chlorella is more directly cleansing, directly cooling. You'll have a bigger detoxification response from chlorella than you will from spirulina. It's just a little bit of difference, almost like the difference between, like, if we were talking about, what's the difference between broccoli and celery? Like, they have different minerals and vitamins. They have a slightly different impact on your body from Ayurveda's perspective. Same with spirulina and chlorella. They're different plants. So I don't use chlorella quite as much in my food as I do spirulina. Now, I also run cold, so I have to be more careful about when and how I use chlorella. But I do love to use chlorella. I just use it in smaller amounts, and I personally tend to, like, if I'm doing a teaspoon of chlorella, I might just put it into half water, half coconut juice, and just drink it as a standalone thing. Excuse me. Or you can, especially from Health Force Superfoods, you can buy chlorella as tabs. And you can buy spirulina this way too, where they're pressed into tablet form. Now, I think most people look at those and like, oh, a tab. I can just swallow the tab the way I would swallow a capsule of ibuprofen or something like that. But it takes like thousands of pounds of pressure to compress the powder into those perfect little tabs. And if you put the tabs into a glass of water, they don't completely dissolve. So they're really more meant to chew than to just swallow. They're not necessarily going to break down completely in your digestive system and give you the power that they could give you that they would if you chew them. So here's my secret for how to enjoy chlorella and spirulina tabs. Because on their own, I actually love them on their own, but they're an acquired taste, and I love all these superfoods. I'm a total superfood person. But for some people, it's like, ugh, it tastes like what it is, So what I love to do is I put it into a trail mix of sorts. So the chlorella tabs especially, because they're a little bit more bitter, not majorly, but just a little bit more bitter than the spirulina tabs because they're pure green algae. They taste so good with goji berries, mulberries, a little bit of candied ginger, I'll put like pine nuts or raw almonds, and maybe even some raisins, like some really beautiful small dried fruit, and then I'll eat it all together like a trail mix, and it's really good. And then another thing that the chlorella is super good with, and this surprises a lot of people, but you've got to try it. It really, really is delicious, is olives. So I get those raw botija olives. They're specific kind of olive that um, when they are cured, they're cured in water with good quality salt. They're not cured in vinegar. So I eat them with the chlorella tabs with those olives, and the kind of the oily, they're a little bit oily, they're wet, the olives, and they're just, oh my God, they are just so good with the chlorella tabs. So that for me is a snack in the springtime and in the summer, a really common snack for me that I love to teach about. So anyway, that is kind of my story about spirulina, chlorella, and seaweeds. There was one other thing I wanted to say about chlorella and spirulina. What was it? Um, oh, somebody was asking me the other day, they had a concern about spirulina being like scum on the top of a pond, and how can that be good for you? Maybe I already addressed this in a live, but I'll say it again anyway. Um, when spirulina, chlorella definitely is taken from the coast of China, at least Health Forces is. Um, Spirulina is a culture that, so there's a culture that comes from nature, but then that culture is cultivated in a sterile, controlled environment. It's very, very clean. And with the chlorella, again, I go to a company that I know and love and trust, which is why I go to Health Force Superfoods for all of my green algae, because their integrity is amazing and I trust them. They third party test their chlorella that comes from the coast of China. At least last time I checked, that's where it was coming from. Um, and they in-house test it. I mean, their testing standards are very, very high for the foods that they bottle to be of true, pure quality. And so I get my chlorella from them because I trust the source. So that's my recommendation to you if you are concerned about the source of algae. Contact the company or companies that you want to get them from and learn about their testing procedures. Find out, what precautions do they take before they bottle it and make it available to you so that you can feel good about it. I've definitely been eating all of these superfoods now for years, and I believe that they completely enhance my diet, my nutrition, my sense of being nourished. And I really recommend them, especially for my vegan students and vegan clients, because I want them especially to have some really high quality, nutrient dense sources of protein. And I want them to be getting that as much as they can, especially the vegans who are lighter or drier or just move faster, have more energy in the world. So the vatas and the pittas definitely need a little bit more of the protein. So anyway, that was a long Facebook Live to talk about green superfoods. I hope you got a lot out of this live as usual. And if you're watching me on YouTube, thank you so much for watching. You can join these live broadcasts inside of my Facebook group, Ayurveda Everyday with Talia. And again, if you have not yet signed up for my new free webinar, it's going to be awesome. It's my 5 tell-all secrets to having more energy and vitality in springtime. I'm doing one today, another one on this next following week on Monday and Thursday. And there will be a replay for every single one. So if you can't come at the exact time that I'm offering it live, sign up anyway, get the replay. You can watch it at your leisure. You'll have 2 days to watch it after it airs live. So lots of opportunities to get the goodness that's coming. And thank you so much. I want to wake up my cat because she looks so cute right now, but I'll leave her alone. Okay, bye.